Today's we're gonna talk about best practices as it relates to Jeff and what he's currently doing. And I'm always fascinated with small businesses and watching them grow and helping them watching their progress through this program and how they're growing their business. But before we begin, I want to have a little networking activity. I need for everybody to, in the chat feature, write down your name, your business name and location, email, contact information, not you, Michael, because I don't want you having no wrecks. Your your area of expertise, meaning your background, if you have any current certifications, and what year you graduated from GPI's program. If you're interested in teaming, as well as creating an ad hoc cohort with your fellow GPI CEOs. Because my goal when I started this was to create a community because everybody's gone through the boot camp and the program, and y'all talked about how hard it was. But you all have successfully completed, and now you at least understand the basics and the language and can now have dialogue. My goal is that we take over. I really do want Wakanda forever. You all take it and pull all these skill sets together and go after the 100 million, 200 million. I get to hear and see everybody through this process. And so I know what type of background has come through here. And now it's time for us to move from being sharecroppers to shareholders. Amen.
Mhm.
All right. Just a little housekeeping. GPI now is offering a membership package. We're going to really launch it come January, and that's going to include all of the lectures that you've had as you went through the training, as well as the resources. And I realized when I created the program, I'm still just giving you all the basic foundations, and it's pretty fast in what you're learning. So I'm going to pull out separate workshops, separate webinars where we're going to concentrate on specific areas, RFQs, creating that marketing plan. Because again, the class, even though it's 6 months, it's still a whole lot of information. Um, and build out different webinars, and part of your membership will allow you to have access to that. We also were going to create a live networking group where we're going to meet twice a month because I want to be able to see and feel you guys and see where you're going in your growth in your business. Also, I'll add coaching services, and I'm going to start developing some ebooks that's going to go along with your um, along with your training. So you all can see GPI trying to grow just like you guys. I'm trying to be a CEO. Amen. We also are offering website design capability statement. So I'm partnering and building my infrastructure as well. So if you all need this additional support as you continue building out your business, we are available. Um, our orientation session for January will start January 9th. Please continue to refer people. Again, it's about building out a community, and you guys have truly been my sales force, and I thank you for all the referrals that you all have been sending my way. With that being said, we're going to jump into the webinar with Mr. Hayden. Um, Jeff, I'm going to let you share your story, but I really want you to start from the bottom from where you started with your commercial clients and then what you did within the government and now what you're currently doing in your business and some lessons that you've learned and how you're able to really how did you transfer from leaving a government job, a good government job, as they said, to this space.
My name is Jeff Hayden. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Hayden Executive Associates, LLC, located out in Washington, D.C. I will put my information in the chat as well, so for everyone. So I started off first in retail, right? And then I went, and this is professional. I started off in retail, and then I went into business banking. And then ended up finding my way into the federal government. That's how I got to the federal government. So I'll just give you that background. So I started off in customer service, and then I started off in business banking. So I had to deal with a lot of high-end clients in the business banking industry with Bank of America. And then that was before transitioning into the federal government. So I had a little bit of a business understanding of how a business is operated by being able to look at how um, their bank activity so I had access to that information. I learned a lot who was doing what. Even
Hmm.
individuals in the music industry and individuals that came in from all walks of life. So that was a great thing, and that's actually the segue of how I got into federal government. At least how I got into the federal government by being in the business banking due to clients. So they would meet me and want to hire me in the business banking arena. They say, "Hey, won't you come work for us?" And so, um, as I ended up going into the world of EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity, where I started off designing databases for the federal government. Took that under my own initiative, but to do that wasn't what I was hired to do. But I learned that skill set and brought that to the table. And then at the same time, I was still pursuing my dreams, which my dreams were to do music, right? Which was also, they were also building at the same time, you know. Um, I have, I ended up doing business for a lot of major corporations, you know, as I
What were
mentioned.
you doing? What type of work were you doing when you say in business and the music industry? Exactly what were you doing?
So I started off doing music production and music engineering. So I've produced for artists and worked with artists in the likes of Tank, Genuine, Raheem Devon. When it comes down to some names you may be familiar with, I've also done business with individuals such as Marsha Ambrosius, individuals such as even Ashford and Simpson. Before Nick passed away, I was one of the last individuals to actually do a business deal with them. In the music industry, I did songwriting, and then also I started to, uh, experiment in different areas of music as well, which landed me into television and film. Television and film, I started off with a project on NBC. And I've learned quickly that all of what I was doing in the music industry, I learned that it was a different kind of money in television. How about that? I'll just say
Mm.
that. so,
Better or less? Or
so, so with television, just to give you that, I've done projects with Stars, HBO, Showtime, NBC, ABC, Fox, television shows on that. One of the shows, just to give you an example, Orange is the New Black. I've worked on that project. I've worked on Survivor's Remorse. That was on, I believe it was on Stars. I've worked on commercials for automobile companies, such as Jeep Cherokee, and uh, just I've worked on TV specials. I did scored TV specials for Steve Harvey's TV special. I've done episodes with Magic Johnson on Aspire, his television station. Yeah, so I've been around doing a lot of different things with regard to that and commercially, and that's still proven successful today. Pretty much grew that from the bottom up and from foundation, learning how to do music engineering. I'm talking, when I first went into the studio, how I was able to, get my way in there is sort of like what I'm going to talk about today, which is being able to know what's your worth now versus later, right? So I went in there to sweep floors and clean the bathroom, right? That's how I put myself around the industry to learn the business. And so here I am now as an executive of a music licensing company. And that's where I ended up commercially. Now, professionally, when I went into the federal government,
And how old were you when you went in there?
the
In
studio,
the
or
huh?
you see me in the
Into
studio?
the government, the federal government.
Oh, I went into the federal government when I was, I would say 23. Yeah, 23. 23.
Okay.
I went into the federal government.
Okay.
And I started off at a GS5, and I worked my way all the way up to an executive at a GS14. And I was slated to be a GS15, but I left before then because, and I'll explain that story as well, and why I decided to leave. But in the federal government, what I did was I've always, those of you who are on this call, I'm pretty sure if you're all entrepreneurs, you're go-getters, you understand being a go-getter and what it means to make yourself stand out amongst, the crowd. So that's whenever I did, I always gave 150%, just trying to get my way to the top, right? So with that being said, I ended up overseeing a program that was highly visible, and all the way up to the White House, right? During the Obama era, where I had to actually go in and do things. The service population that I had were executives in the federal government in different walks of life. But now, I won't go too much in detail about that. But just having that high visibility offered me a lot of opportunities and to move up the ladder, right? And then, of course, that's just pretty much the work ethic. It's all about work ethic. And so here I am transitioning out of the federal government. And then I went from out of the federal government to independent contracting.
When
Now,
did you leave the government?
I left the federal government in 2018, actually. Yeah,
And
2000.
did you have any, what was your strategy and exit strategy? How did you prepare yourself to begin to transition full time into your own business?
Okay. All right. Well, I'll start off by saying, well, one, I'm very proactive, right? So one thing I did was I attended and I'll tell you how it started. I attended a seminar, a retirement seminar, way before the time I was supposed to attend it, because I'm always trying to get a step ahead of the game. So I want to know, if they say you're supposed to go to this seminar 5 years to 10 years from now, I'm going right then and there because I want to know what they're talking about, right? So before that, it gave me a wake-up call pretty much. And I looked around and I said, if I stayed within the federal government for 30 to 40 more years to retire, then I would only be able to go up in salary like a few more steps, and then reach that glass ceiling. So I decided based on that.
And you were, what grade were you?
I was a GS14 at the time.
Okay, so those of you that don't understand that government jargon, only people up in DC understand these grades and these
Okay.
steps. That's pretty much at that level. GS14 would be categorized as a senior to mid level manager. Am I correct?
Yes. It's it's because you can be a GS13 and it's and reach your six-figure salaries, and then you go up to GS14, and then you go up to GS15. And so it's up there. It's up there as far as the scale. The top of the scale is GS15 before you move into SES. senior executive services. So I was just pretty much one step away from being at the top. And so I saw myself saying, well, I know I can get to the GS15 within a couple of years, right? And so if I get to that GS15 in a couple of years, then what? Um, and so I looked and said, I'm not going to do that for 30 or 40 more years until I retire. And that was just the mindset I had. Some individuals, you know, would not walk away from that opportunity because you're comfortable. It's real consistent pay, good pay. You can live good, you know, at a salary. You know, I think I left when I was around, I think 140,000 a year or something was when I decided to leave the federal government. But with that being said, you know, I looked at that and I said, it's time for me to do something. I have to figure out a way to make my own money, you know? So I moved out, decided to leave the federal government into the unknown, into being a contractor, independent contractor, which means I don't know, it's not guaranteed. Contracts end all the time. And the crazy thing is when I jumped out there, it was during a period of time when we were shutting down. So as soon as I jumped out, the government shut down. Where I was, the funds were allocated for that year, so I would have continued to receive payments. Where I went, the government had just shut down, so payments were not coming in at all. So you know, jumping out there, everyone, you know, talks about the big jump. I mean, even, you know, I had opportunity to meet Russell Simmons one day. He talked about the big jump. Steve Harvey talked about the big jump. It's something that you have to do. You have to do the big jump. You can't be afraid to make it, to take that risk, because without doing the big jump, you're always going to have one foot in and one foot out, and you're never going to be all the way in. You can't get it there that way. So when I jumped out there again, you know, I was like, how am I going to pay my bills? So anyway, we're talking about the challenges, right, from transition. So I negotiated with one of the companies that I was dealing with to get an advance, which floated me over until the government reopened again, right? So that was, you know, one of those things. My entrepreneur hat came on, light bulb went off and said, hey, this is what I'm going to do for you. This is what I can do. But I negotiated in advance, which kept me floated. So one of the transitions, though, key problems that I found out about when I transitioned is that getting out of the employee mindset. Okay. Years in the federal government, working a 9 to 5 can condition your mind and to think one way when you should be thinking another way. So I want to talk about, you know, that and for everyone, you know, that's I don't know where everyone is that's on this call, whether you're a company that's already doing your thing, or you're just starting out, or you're looking to get started. But I'm going to let you know what I'm going to do is cover things for all, right? So as a W-2 employee, you're working 9 to 5. You have individuals that give you direction, give you instruction on how to do what you need to do. This is where you obtain your skill sets, right? Your experience in whatever field that you are in, you know, which then gives you the opportunity, in which I thought to go out and do self-employment, become a 1099, take that skill set and use that to make more money. In the contracting world, you can make more money because you get 100% of your money when you're not a W-2 employee, which gives you more freedom. And I'll just say it this quickly: as a W-2 employee, I think you have what is it, 12 or 13 of categories where you can write off in your taxes, and there's over 300 when you are a company, right? So different categories. So you have more opportunity to write off different expenses and use the money for the purposes of improving yourself. But self-employment is where it starts. If you're trying to do it from the bottom going up and building it from a good foundation, from establishing a strong foundation. That's my personal belief. If you know, it may work differently for others, but this is what I believe in. Taking that skill set, learning how that the contracting world was. So I was self-employed, and what the challenges I learned from being self-employed is that uh, so the challenge I learned from being self-employed is that you're responsible for your own income. All right. So I was finding myself working more, and I started making a lot of money in self-employment. But I was limited. There's only 24 hours in the day. So that's where I really got stuck for a while before I attended your class, by the way, which opened my mind up to understand the difference between self-employment and being a CEO. And with self-employment, um, you'll have self-employment tax. That means 100% of everything you make, it's going to be taxed. You're going to be taxed as an individual as well, as a business as well. So that self-employment tax, after you paid your taxes added on, it's a lot. Your tax bracket it's the amount of money you're losing to taxes is high with self-employment, but yet it gives you the freedom to spend your money how you choose to spend it. Then I learned that when I started getting contracts or opportunities, that I couldn't take certain opportunities because I was already I overextended myself at that time. And so that right there was a big challenge to me. And so I had to learn how to jump from being an employee of the W-2, self-employment outside versus jumping back to being an employee, but as a CEO, which is a totally different mindset. And
What helped you to do the mindset? What was the shift? What was the aha moment where you saying, okay, I need to sacrifice working all these hours and killing myself to manage my business?
well, I the I can't I can't really say the exact aha moment, but I remember it was during one of our training sessions where the aha moment came to me with regard when you were explaining, how, the operations and the job functions of the CEO. When I looked at the job functions of the CEO and I looked at my job function, I was like, I'm not a CEO. I'm self-employed, right? And it's one of those situations, almost like, if I can compare it, is if you have never paid rent and lived on your own, and you're living with your parents at that time or whatever, and you won't have that experience of understanding what it means to pay rent and buy your own groceries and be responsible for your upkeep of your, no one's going to do the chores for you around your house, all those types of things. It's the same thing when it comes down to um, business as well. You won't know what it's like. And I don't want to offend anyone who's self-employed because I was once self-employed. And some people take offense to this because I've been having conversations, discussions with individuals. Some people say, oh, I own my own business. And so I asked one question. I say, if you were to leave your business today, would your business be able to go on without you?
Mm, mm,
And so owning a business versus being self-employed, if you take a look, when Steve Jobs left Apple, Apple is still going, right? That's a business because a business is not, you're not responsible for your own income in a business.
mm,
You have other individuals that are working for you that have areas of specialty that are going out and performing on your behalf, right? To represent the company.
mm.
So I had to learn, and until you have to run a payroll, you have to run a payroll, which is a whole different monster. I can say it's the same wake up call as when you have to start first paying your own rent and your own phone bill and your own getting your own health insurance, your own car insurance, your own when you have that's it's sort of the same uh, wake up call. Or so I would say that that helped me. The class helped me understand how to position myself where I could hire someone
Mm,
and to do the functions and bill at a certain rate. And so I'm paying, just to give you a quick example, if you're paying an employee $15 an hour, $20 an hour to do a function, but your billing rate is $60 an hour, then you see the difference going to the company and the employee gets their money, right? So from that standpoint, now you're operating as a business, as a CEO.
And so, how did you find those jobs after leaving the government, where you're an independent contractor,
Mm.
but now you're actually a subcontractor? So, you actually had another step in that. Can you discuss that a little further?
If you're a federal employee and you have that background, every the
Contract.
contractors are all in federal government right now, right? So you see the companies that come in and out, right? And so the way I did it was I was able to research the market on which businesses were doing the business with federal government in my area of specialty. And when I approached those individuals coming out of the federal government, which most people don't do, they look at you as an
Gold.
opportunity as well, right? Because
Gold.
you have internal knowledge of how the federal government operates, right?
Mhm.
You'll be able to deal with the government client from a different perspective because you were once federal yourself. And that's not to take away for anyone who's not coming out of the federal government. You can still research who's doing business with the federal government in your line of area of specialty to go out and obtain contracts. And so with self-employment, I'm sorry, not self-employment, but when it comes down to subcontracts, uh, you'll find yourself in a position where you're providing a service for someone, and then they will look at you almost as an employee as well.
Mhm.
They won't look at you as a business, even if you contract your company out with that company. They're not looking at you as an equal. They're looking at you as, oh, you're providing this service for me. We're going to pay you. You're a
Mhm.
contractor, but you're sort of an employee. Um, the challenge is getting them to see you as an equal.
Mhm.
That's the
Mhm.
big that's the big transition. That's the big step. Getting that company to see you as an equal because I would say going into and I remember you talked about strategies for federal contracts. I would say teaming agreements. There's so many different ways to start off, but subcontracts where you are just brought on is not the same as a teaming agreement when you're going after a contract, right?
Mhm.
Um, those are two different things. So in order for someone to look at you as a team member, to want to partner up with you to go after a contract, one, you got to come bring your A game and you got to come in and show what you're capable of doing. That's the first step, performance. And that's all on you and your skill set and what you bring to the table as far as that's concerned. But um, getting them to see eye to eye is you have to be able to offer them something, right? And that's another thing that I learned actually. And Paula, actually, you coached me on that, and one of the deals that I actually uh, was able to obtain with my first teaming agreement, which was getting them. And I'll tell you how I did it. What I did was I brought them an potential future opportunities that they couldn't have access to
Mhm.
because this particular company had graduated from 8A program. And so I was able to then pique their interest to for them to say it's worth going in business with this individual because I know that later on it can lead to more money, right? So that's
Mhm.
how I got them in. They see eye to eye. But what I will say is, as a startup business, my strategy is different than what it would be as a seasoned company as well, because teaming agreements is where is my strategy for right now. And the reason why I say that is because there's these things called audits by the SBA, right? And when you're in the beginning stages of trying to get your company together, I'm talking about accounting systems to how your procedures, different types of insurances that you need, all getting your website. Like for right now, I have two contracts working on my third major contract. I'm working on my third contract. Well, four. I'm working on two other contracts, and I don't even have my website up yet, right? I'm just saying, shame on me. I don't even have my website up, but that's not stopping me from moving forward with obtaining these contracts right now. But what I want to tell you is that it'll give you time, as in the teaming agreement, to learn from that other company while you're dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's. And okay, so when you do a joint venture and you're a primary contractor, then the SBA is looking at you directly. Then you're susceptible to audits, right? And if you don't have your accounting system in place, which we call it being DCAA compliant, which I'll go into more detail about because it's very important. If you don't have that in place and you don't have other things in place, you can end up finding yourself being barred from doing a business with the government before you even begin.
But those are for the larger $1 million contracts. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say that they're going to be focused on some of the smaller ones because they understand small businesses
Right.
really don't have the capital to build out a major accounting system. So
Right.
that's why it's good with your teaming
Right.
that you're able to partner with someone else that kind of helps you with the load.
Absolutely,
Correct?
because you're invoicing when you're doing the teaming agreement, you're invoicing the prime. The prime is invoicing the government. So that's the individuals who are on the radar. And so you can learn from that. And I say, and to grow, so you're growing your business right now without being without the pressure of being ready, right? And so that's my strategy right now. Before I go into joint ventures or going after a prime contract myself. And I would say foundation is key. I don't care if you're building relationships, you're building a house, you're building anything for that matter. If you know how you start is very important because you'll find yourself always playing catch up if you do not because you got to. It's like what's that saying? Be careful what you ask for. I would tell anybody, do not rush into this, and do not bite off more than you can chew. I've seen horror stories where people go and they win multi-million-dollar contracts, and then they go and have to recruit maybe 30 to 50 employees for that contract. And then they have to meet payroll for those 30 and 50 employees for that contract. Yet they haven't invoiced the federal government yet. So they don't have the money to float them over. So they can't even begin the contract to get it off the ground. So they lost the contract as soon as they won it. In other words, you lose the contract. And so you want to be careful. You have to start off and gradually grow. Now, and if you do find yourself in that situation, like a teaming agreement, then that company or a joint venture, that company can actually have that in place already. They have already established, and they can actually help pull you along in the process, right? And everything is negotiable. Everything is all business arrangements. How you set it up is negotiable. Like you can say, I'm negotiating this one key piece of this contract, and this is how much I'm negotiating to get paid to do this one piece. And then you can go to another contract and say, and take on more responsibility. And then you can go to another contract and take on, a little responsibility. So
I think what tends to happen is people are fearful of asking. You know what I mean?
yeah, that's true.
And I think I even saw that with you in the sense of the relationships that you had with your
Dynamics.
current current teaming partners
Mm-hmm.
is that you were wanted to make sure that you were asking properly
Right,
to get
right.
what you wanted to get in the end.
Exactly. Because
But what
yeah,
I say to you guys have the power because there's spaces that they can't play in. And so instead of going in a passive and submissive role, my goal is to make you go in there like you got it going on, right?
right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would tell people, you know, and I know there's you want to go out there, you want to make money, you want to start fast, but I say be careful what you ask for because when the ball start rolling, I'm going to tell you the ball starts rolling,
Mhm.
and you'll find yourself playing catch up. Oh, um, For example, here's a contract. You get the contract, subcontract for review, and now they need to execute this contract by such and such date. These are all the things that need to be in place for this contract. You are saying, yes, I have this in place. Yes, I have this in place. When sometimes you may not. So now you got to scramble and go and get this in place, and scramble and go get that in place, and go get this in place, so that you will not be in breach of your contract when you start, right? Such as different kinds of insurance, and just getting organized. And one of the key things that I really want to share with people on the call is the accounting system, or investing in back into your craft. I don't care what it is that you're doing. If investing back in your craft, investing back in yourself. Like, for instance, if I'm doing music, if I don't invest back into my craft to get more music equipment, the material or the music that I'm producing is going to be outdated. Put limitations on myself just by not investing and educating myself. And that goes for when you're building your business too. It's, of course, there are other individuals out there that can do the function for you, such as, if you're not a tax accountant, don't try to be a tax accountant, because that's not your area of specialty. You hire a tax accountant, right? But there are other areas in accounting that you definitely want to know, such as bookkeeping and understanding what's allowed and what's not allowed. Okay, when it comes down to being audited, you want to know that ahead of time. You don't want to learn the hard way. In other words, you don't want to learn from an audit what you've been doing wrong. You want to get ahead of the curve. And if you hire a book company, and what I found the challenge is hiring a book company service that knew what I needed done, right? At the end of the day, to give you a prime example, at the end of the day, I hire a bookkeeping company to do all of my bookkeeping, to categorize all my transactions, where I'm spending money in my business, and I get audited, and the bookkeeper did it wrong or did something incorrectly. They're not going to come after the bookkeeper. They're going to come after me, right? So I say this to everyone: learn everything yourself first before passing it off to someone else, so that you will be able to know exactly what you're doing. So, it took me. And for those of you who are in that position, I actually have a great system that I've put in place to make you DCAA compliant, and then it's also the company that trained me on that, provided me training on bookkeeping, training on all the chart of accounts that are needed, training on allowables and unallowables, because when you're doing business, and what I plan to do is become 8A, of course, but I'm positioning myself for that. You have to have your commercial and your federal business, those transactions under one umbrella, and because the SBA is going to want to see where all your money is coming from. They don't want to have to guess. And it's the same thing as if you wanted to go into business with somebody else and they say, hey, I got $1 million in my bank account. Well, what you do? Don't worry about what I do. Well, where did you get that money from, right? You mess around and get in business with that individual, you go to jail with that individual. You don't know. So it's the same concept. SB want to know where your money is coming from, who you're doing business with.
And that's for me too. I say the same thing. My biggest fear is I never wanted to be held hostage, because I had to go. I went through a lot of accountants and bookkeepers. So before I found the one that I was comfortable with, I had to learn it myself, because I couldn't correct her if I didn't know or understand what I was looking for. And it's the same thing with your IT. I've been working with $1 million companies, and they don't even know the password to their back office. And I'm saying that IT person can hold you hostage. You need all of that as the owner. So there's certain things that you cannot just pass off to someone else. You need to have a clear understanding yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I learned something, I'm learning all the time. So just like unallowables, when I said allowables and unallowables, that probably sounded like to some people, what is that? So allowables are expenses that you incur that are directly related to conducting federal uh, uh, business with the federal government, right? And then unallowables are those expenses that you cannot write off or claim as doing business with the federal government,
When you're billing.
but yet it's still a business expense. But and you can classify it on the commercial side, right? And the government is not worried about the commercial side of what you're doing. So understanding how to separate the two with your bookkeeping is very important when it comes down to an audit. And you want to start doing that um,
Now,
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 right? Exactly.
now,
Before you go and get the
exactly.
prime contract, because
To have an understanding of what you're getting into, because again, most people don't even understand what you're getting into. But at least if you have the basics, you have some understanding.
okay.
And you got a couple of questions.
Okay.
I have one from Tanisha. She said, "How do you, in the case of trying to win contracts and get funding to pay for those employees?" What have you done? What have you done to position yourself for access to capital? Because people sometimes think if you win these contracts, all of it's up front, but it's based on the different types of contracts.
Absolutely.
So, how do you negotiate your funding to expand your business? What have you done to position yourself?
Okay. Well, it goes back to that my saying when I said don't bite off more than you can chew. So in this instance, what I did, I'll just tell you my walk. I was able to secure one contract where I'm working full time as and this is my was a 1099, right? And then I was able to secure a subcontract where I was bringing on doing a teaming agreement where I brought on another contractor to actually fulfill those duties, and I paid them out, right? So you actually, what I did was I saved money, enough money to float my company for a few months, because like I would say, save enough money to float that employee for the first 3 months. Now, that's
Mhm.
the safe measure because by that time, any
Your
invoice
invoices.
that you've done, you've worked 30 days on that contract, you invoice at the first of the month. If that contract is a net 30 or a net 15, meaning they take 15 days to pay you or 30 days to pay you, by that time you're in the third beginning in the third month, you'll have your money coming in to move forward, and then that's how you build, and you build that way with everybody you're bringing on every contract that you go. Make sure you have
Hmm.
enough to float, and you do the math. You say, how much am I going to pay this employee? I'm going to pay them 20 hours, $20 an hour, and they're going to work 80 hours. And then you do the math, and that's how you stack your coins to actually position yourself to get on that contract without having any worries. Because I'm telling you right now, one of the things I learned about running payroll is that uh,
Hmm.
it's more money
Stressful.
taken away. I tell you what, 7 grand in payroll, just paying a one employee. Well, I say what, you pay 7,000 out of your account, you're paying somebody 30, 35, $3,800 for that pay period for per se. Just to give you an example, and that's 7 grand coming out of your bank account just to cover a 30, just to cover $3,700. Right, that's big, and that's come from understanding the difference between overtime payment versus the regular salary payment as well. Um, One of the things I learned as a CEO is when I put in all these hours and I ran my payroll, I said, this doesn't benefit me to pay myself at this as the CEO. So I'm just going to work that straight 80-hour schedule, even if I'm working more hours. You're the CEO. I mean, you got to put in the game. But it'll benefit you more to keep the money in your business. All right. You keep the money in your business and you pay yourself the minimum amount of operating, you want to of course consult with your tax accountant, the minimum amount to operate as the CEO. And if you need additional money, you just simply do an owner's withdrawal from your business, which is different because that money now can be used for what you want it to do versus giving it directly to Uncle Sam.
But I also say what I've had to do, even for myself personally, I still recommend that even if you're LLC, make yourself an employee so
Yes.
that you do now begin to have records of you paying yourself as an employee. And that was what saved me with the PPP. I could go back and print out, okay, I'm an employee, even though I'm an owner, but I was able to get payroll protection program loan. I have one person who's currently a federal employee, and he states his biggest fear is obtaining medical insurance to replace the insurance that I currently have. Do you have any recommendations and suggestions?
But when you do transition and make yourself a W-2 employee of your own company, like Paul was saying, some of the payroll providers, such as Paychex, ADP, or Gusto, or or QuickBooks, these payroll services, they offer you the opportunity and options for health insurance. So you can get information directly from your payroll provider with regard to auto insurance, with regard a business auto insurance, with regard to compensatory, uh, what is it called again? I can't think of my employees liability.
Workman's compensation.
Yeah, workers' compensation, and the other ones is liability. You want different kinds of liability, different liability insurance. They offer you all these things, and then they also have checklists that help you along the way when you finally get a payroll provider and you put yourself on payroll.
And
So
even for me, I just had to end up sacrificing and going with Obamacare, which is still quirks in the system, but at least I know that I am still covered. And that's the biggest expense for everyone is the insurance.
and
Um,
I will say you have to have a W-2 employee other than yourself as the owner as well, um, to get that the health packets, to set up a 401k plan for your company. You can't just be an owner and make yourself a W-2 employee and put that into effect. You have to have another W-2 employee that's not the business owner as well to qualify. But there are other options as well too.
And the other thing is you're going to be building that cost into those contracts that you win. So you're going to make sure whatever project that you are billing out, whether it's a subcontracting or it's working directly with the government, you're going to factor that cost into your cost.
Absolutely.
You should
Direct.
not never be out of pocket.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to open it up. Anybody else have any more questions? I want to be sensitive to everyone's time, and we're about 10 minutes over. But this has been wonderful. What do you all think? You can open up your phones. Anybody?
Great nuggets. I appreciate that. Yeah. So,
That's some good inspiration.
thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to put my contact right quick in the chat. For anyone that is in a position where they need to get DCAA compliant or want to get their accounting system done, I have a company I can recommend you to if you're in that position, and the same thing, and we'll talk offline, Paula, about that as well, when it comes down to that. Because what I found was there was some accounting companies that were so expensive that
Yes.
they only deal with individuals that make a certain tax
Correct.
money. You got to be having multi-million dollars to deal with those individuals. And then I finally did more digging, and I found a company that actually train you as a startup, and so that you can be in position and then grow. And
I love it.
I found that to be the best.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Um, Everyone, again, make sure you put this information and reach out. By now, throughout the time, you all should have been looking at everyone's chat. Hopefully, you've identified other CEOs that are interested in teaming. Please make sure you write down that information and follow up with them. It's all about networking. Someone could take the lead to create a cohort. But I'm going to do that again as part of the membership, where we're going to, again, really try to create a community. Because my goal, and I'm going to challenge everyone, is to go after those $200 million contracts. If I could get 10 companies to go after a $200 million contract, my job is done. So that's my goal for everyone.
Oh,
Anyone
I
else?
have one question.
Yes.
Hi, it's Robert. You mentioned when you're getting off of working for the government, you transition over to being a contractor. And I guess when I am currently still working for the government.
Okay.
And Paul and I have had these conversations a few times, and I'll be calling you back again, Paul. But going after the federal work, making sure that I don't put myself in that awkward position of being a federal employee, going after federal work. Did you switch over to being a contractor and kept your current job, the work that you were doing, and when you went after the work, or how did you transition that part?
All right, so there's two ways to do it. One, if you're in the federal government and you want to get an independent contract, you can get an independent contract while still having your federal job as a 1099 self-employed if you go through your Department of Ethics and you get approval from your Department of Ethics on what you're trying to do. In most cases, it can't be in the same line of work or same area of specialty because then it'll be deemed a conflict of interest, right? So, yeah, it. Okay, so with that being said, I'll give you an example of what because there are federal employees. I have federal employees that are contracted with me right now, right? And I had to have them go and get to the Department of Ethics, get approval, and the reason being is that they are not allowed to use their government name, their position title in the public, and because that can create a conflict of interest. Well, in this particular position, what they were doing was providing a review process. Well, their name is not going to be on anything. So then, yes, ethics says, oh, no problem. You can approve it. That individual's name is not going to be in any of the documentation. They're not going to be sending emails to any of the other federal entities. They're just doing business directly with me, reviewing documents, and that's the case. So another way that I was able to do it was I write what they call is final agency decisions, legal decisions on behalf of the federal government on discrimination cases. So I would take a case and I would analyze it, apply the laws and principles in place, and look at the theories of discrimination, look at the prongs, and I would issue that. But that's issued by the secretary or the director of that agency, right? So their name is on it. Even though I'm the author, I drafted it, their name is on it. So the Department of Ethics said, I approve you to go and do this type of work. So you can kind of put one foot out the door to transition yourself into that line of work, which I did to establish a business relationship with the company that I was trying to deal with. And then once I put in my notice, I was able to come in and position myself to, so they can sustain myself and actually get an increase in pay coming straight out of the federal government. I just told, but of course, in my situation, the shutdown happened, and I had to do a little bit of negotiations for the first 30 days. But after that, you definitely want to start positioning yourself to have multiple streams of income per se. So, so if you have an hourly situation, you only want to get one hourly situation under your belt where you're working hourly because it's only 24 hours in a day. And then project, then you get a per project situation for a contract. That was when you finish the project, you get paid. When you work on a project, that's on you. We just have a beginning assignment date and a deadline. So now when you complete that project throughout the day, whenever you work on it, that's your time. And that way you can maintain that hourly contract and then also have a per project subcontract as well to start building up your revenue. And with any business, a startup business, you're going to put in some hours. You're going to put in, I found myself initially working 17 to 18 hours, 17 hours sometimes, 12, 13 hours. 12 hours is a blessing to me in a day to work on some certain things. And then now that I've finally transitioned myself over to start hiring employees, my time freed up. So now I'm able to focus on
the business
aspect of it. Yeah, I'm able to free up my time. Like right now, doing this call, I'm able to do that right now. And and you have have more freedom on how you handle your work, in other words.
Mhm.
Uh,
And for me, it was I was in the same position with SBA. I like to say I was on parole for a year, meaning I couldn't touch any of their client base, and that made sense.
right, you can't.
And the ones that I serviced, that didn't stop me from going outside of Georgia, meaning I could reach people in Texas and everywhere else. So I had a game plan. My exit strategy took me 2 years. But I started building it and preparing myself so that I would have income that was going to cover my salary when I left. And my salary has, as you said, doubled since I left. And you've been a federal employee, you're gold. Don't forget that.
And
You're
don't,
gold because
and
you
don't-
have the inside knowledge of those agencies that no one else has.
yep.
Oh,
And don't
um,
forget that your time. Don't forget your time is your time in the federal government. You can work, because I don't know, what, and where I was at in DOD, we put in hours off the clock too, to get the job done. And when you put in those hours off the clock to get the job done to keep your performance up, then it's one of those situations where you find yourself, no matter how much work you put in, no matter how good you're doing, you're getting paid the same amount. But on the
yep,
private sector side, when you put in that work, you get the money. That's the
yeah,
difference. That's the
yeah.
difference. There's no glass ceiling. In other words, that's what I was able to get past. So,
And I say for all CEOs, and I'm gonna close with this note: it's a faith walk.
it is a faith.
It's a faith walk. I had to put my faith in God and understanding that it was bigger than me. And had I not taken that faith walk, I would not be here, and you all wouldn't be here. And I am his testimony from 5 years ago to where we are now. We have 1,300 people in this database, and it's been word of mouth. You guys have been the wonderful marketers for me. So I appreciate you guys, and we're going to continue this, especially in 2021. Because 2020, we ready for it to go. We ready for COVID to go. Um, with that being said, again, Jeff, thank you for your time and your insight. I felt it was important that they not only hear my voice, but they hear from the community because everybody's doing things. And again, I'm a strong believer of each one teach one. So with that being said, I want everyone to have a happy Thanksgiving. Stay home. We don't want no more corona. That corona has hit our community hard. So be safe, everyone. And
Thank you.
I'll see you. Have a great day.
Take
Thank
care.
you so much. Thank you.